Okay, what's up? Sorry, I was a minute late. Yeah, so I did a really first of all, everyone tell me, sorry if you can't hear me. I guess if you already are hearing me, then I guess we're good. I had a really strong, I would say very passionate preview for this that I posted on Twitter and then I posted on Instagram, and it was me ranting for 11 minutes. Well, maybe not the full 11 minutes. I kind of toned down toward the end, but yeah, ranting a lot about the soccer thing or the football thing. It's hard for an American to refer to it as football, and everyone understands why, right? Because football is different here in America. America, as we all know, we call it soccer. So anyway, but so I was ranting a lot in that, and I talked about some other controversial topics, and I said, and I put in the title "Controversy Live Stream." And then somehow, like right before I get on, I feel all the energy drain from me. No, no, I'm joking, but I really don't have. I have no inclination right now to rant. So anybody who was tuning in with concern that I was about to pop off on multiple subjects. I will share my perspectives. But I went back and I watched it. Like I watched what I'd recorded after I put it on Instagram and Twitter. This like 11-minute video I'm talking about. I went back and I watched it and I liked it. And I was like, yeah, I like it. I stand behind it. But man, I'm really kind of hitting hard there on some things. And so I don't know. I think I'm going to do a little more since we have a little more time. I'm going to do something more chilled out. So thank you to my mods. I see Vanessa V is here. I see Laura B is here. And then, Quentin, you said you call it soccer football because you're an American. Yeah. Laura B is here. Vanessa's here. My great friend AJ might be joining us shortly. And anyway, so I appreciate, and maybe Rebel Bird. I don't know. I don't see. But anyway, thank you, mods. Okay, so there were three things that I talked about. This is going to be about controversy, but it's not going to be about controversy like in the sense of ranting. So give me, I actually realized that I need some water. So give me like 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Mods, prevent anyone from leaving. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's better. Yeah, so as you can see, things are very casual. This is my mom's house. Again, people who follow me closely know that they've seen this background before. So I'm back at my mom's, and someone asked me, "Are you having relationship problems?" No, I mean, I understand it would. That's how it would seem. But I just have a weird, unconventional life. I don't really know how to put it, and otherwise. And so I'll go through periods where, like, I will barely see my mom for like months and months, or maybe even a year, and I'll talk to her like once every 2 months or something. To then periods where I can spend like whole months at home in a time. And so I don't know. It's interesting. And part of it is that I've been doing some family traveling with his side of the family. He's been doing some traveling too, and just a lot going on. So I don't know, but it's become kind of like a hub of some kind. Now there's all this furniture in the background because I was helping someone in my family with a house project. And so if I look a little tan, I had these dark circles under my eyes because I hate the taste of water and I never drink it, which I know is horrible. Well, not never, but I don't drink nearly enough. And so anyway, I cover up the circles with concealer, but otherwise I don't know if you can see, but I'm actually more tan than normal, which I hate because you know how obsessed I am with skincare. And so I consider sunlight, I have the philosophy of a vampire when it comes to sunlight, which is that any amount of time in the sun, I'm just like, right? And I understand that that is not a healthy philosophy. Like I understand that I need vitamin D, and I have been told by some people who seem educated in this that the vitamin D that you get from the sun is very specific, and you can't. I drink a ton of dairy, which I know some people think is bad, but I drink a ton of dairy. I figured I'm getting all the vitamin D I need, but not so. I've been told you need sunlight, and so I do make sure every day that I'm getting a decent amount, sometimes a lot of sun on my legs. But like if you were to look, I'm not going to demonstrate because it would be weird, but I have like really tan legs and really white face. And some people even comment on it sometimes. My mom, both my mom and oh God, who else? Another family member have said, wow, your legs are really tan. And I'm like, yeah, because that's the only part of my body that I feel comfortable allowing in the sun. Anyway, I don't know. It comes with just being really obsessed with skincare, and it's definitely an idiosyncrasy. You know, like if they made a movie about me one day for some reason, you know how like Howard Hughes, when they made The Aviator about him, they really focused on his obsessive compulsive idiosyncrasy. With me, they would probably make the skincare thing a lot more like pronounced than it is. But yeah, that's one of the idiosyncrasies I have. So I hate getting sunlight on my face. And so anyway, but I ended up being out in the sun a pretty good bit, moving some stuff around. But for right now, this is the temporary home of this furniture, but hopefully not forever. So that's a long, boring story. You probably want to hear about the controversial stuff. Yeah, so what was the first thing? Oh, yes. So Rubiales, the Luis Rubiales, the kiss scene around the world, as I said in the video that I put on Instagram and Twitter. I'll put it on Patreon too, for those of you who don't follow me on social media. But okay, look, I'm gonna try to steel man the opposing argument here, okay? Because I think that that's probably a lot more satisfying for people if I feel like I'm really hearing what they're having to say from the other side. And I have no problem doing that. So the perspective of the other side on this debate, I mean, is that look, are we stupid here? This guy kissed this woman. You're telling me there was no sexual aspect to it. Actually, I'm not saying that, but continue on. You're telling me there's no sexual aspect to that act. You're telling me that when a man kisses a woman, that's just a totally platonic act. You're saying that it's okay for him to, I guess he can just go around now anytime he gets in a good mood and he can just start kissing women indiscriminately. And that it's a very strong thing for Jenny Hermoso to and the women and the people, because there's a lot of men too, who are supporting her to stand up and say, finally, enough of this. You will not touch women without their full and enthusiastic consent, and you will respect physical boundaries. So that's a big part of the argument. I think also there are allegations, and I do not know to what degree they've been substantiated, but there are allegations of various corrupt things that this guy has supposedly done during his tenure as president of the Spanish Football Association, and that basically this was already a really shady or perhaps in some way criminal, broke the rules sort of guy. And so that this is just sort of the coup de grace of that, the culmination of that, which is finally he did something that's publicly stupid, like forcibly kissing this woman, and then thinking that he could get away with it by going around and saying all this stuff that he's saying in speeches or interviews or whatever. By the way, any interviews that he's done. And so if one of you has access to that, then let me know. You can put it in the chat or whatever. And if you're a mod and you see it, let me know. But I'll look it up. I'm curious to see. All that I've seen of him was the speech that he gave. And I thought it was really great. And I thought it was really ballsy. And I was like, good for you for emphatically saying you're not going to put up with this. But that's the perspective I get. That's the perspective. And I think hopefully I've more or less summed it up there. Right. And I'm not saying it's a stupid perspective or anything like that. I'm saying, though, that I think that things have gotten like really out of proportion in response to this. Like if it had just been sort of the initial thing that happened, which is that he got some criticism for it or people noted it. Like I felt like the first day of news coverage was like pretty reasonable. And that was actually why I didn't start covering it then, even though I've been aware of it from the very, very beginning. Was because I was like, well, the first day or two or whatever, the first day, like, okay, this is reasonable. This guy, yeah, he stepped over the line. I wouldn't appreciate it, but there's other things that are totally acceptable to people that I don't appreciate either. I'll talk about that in a minute. But he stepped over the line. I wouldn't appreciate it. He shouldn't do that again. And you know what? It's okay that other people are noticing and they're like, that's not cool. Let's not have that. But then it just ramped up then into becoming like some kind of like social movement. And there's the Spanish government launched an official investigation into him. FIFA, am I saying it right? FIFA launched an official investigation. Amnesty International issued an official declaration on this as a severe human rights violation. You've got people and then lately you've got Spanish footballers coming on trotting onto the field with "We are all Jenny" and "I stand with Jenny," and now people are calling her the face of MeToo, and this is going to change Spain. And I'm just like, what? It's just so out of proportion to me. It is so out of proportion to me. And so I want people to, well, I don't, at this point, I'm kind of getting to a point where I don't even really care if I'm misunderstood about certain things because that's just part of the game, right? And I stay in it understanding that at some point I'm going to upset everyone. And that's not to say like, oh, poor me, I'm such a victim, but that's just to say like, okay, I see that is this. And so it's not even like I feel like I have to really explain to you where I'm coming from. I mean, it's on a basic level. I think if you just look at the video, I don't get it. Yes, I see that there was a kiss, and I see that it was something that he moved her head. There was physical force applied. Thing is, many of our physical interactions are that way. I'm not talking about like rape or sexual assaults or whatever, but I'm saying like as someone, okay, maybe I can contextualize it better this way. For whatever reason, I am someone for whom any kind of physical contact outside of a romantic context is really pretty distasteful, and it kind of makes my skin crawl. So even being hugged, and you know what, I've gone through phases in certain things in my life where I did not feel that way so much, and so it's a kind of a weird thing that comes and goes. I can't really explain it, but generally speaking, it makes my skin crawl for anyone to hug me. And someone might say, well, there must be some deep pathology, or abuse in your past. I mean, I'm nothing that I'm aware of. Now, I could be like one of the Marilyn Manson victims, and it's going to come back to me. And hopefully, if it comes back to me, I'm going to learn that it was a very wealthy man who did something to me so I can get lots of money out of it. But no, I digress. Sorry. But I don't know what the reason is, but I'm just saying I don't like it. And I really don't like, and lots of people in my family do it. So they're going to watch this and they're going to feel bad, and they shouldn't feel bad because I've never said anything. And there's a reason I've never said anything, which is part of what I'm getting at as well. But kissing on the cheek. If you just know, if you ever see me, if you ever meet me one day and you kiss me on the cheek, this is what I'm feeling inside. I don't like it. And it doesn't matter who it's from, whatever. I don't like it. So for whatever reason, in my mind, I have like touch, and maybe it's very unfortunate. Maybe there's some deep hidden pathology or memory that I'm repressing or whatever. But for whatever reason, I've got touch sort of cordoned off in a sexual zone, and this other stuff makes me feel, no matter whom it's coming from. So as someone who feels, I think, unusually, quote unquote, triggered, if we're going to use those words, by this sort of thing, if I can look at this and can say, yeah, ick, whatever, but like, no big deal, really, then, it doesn't, he was so enthusiastic. It was so fast. And I concede it was forceful. I concede, it's my demonstration again, if you saw my last video, but like, yes, I get it. But it was so fast. He was so obviously enthusiastic. I don't think that we know for certainty that there was something really sleazy going on there. And I understand that people say, well, it's about boundaries. But what I'm trying to say to you about the hugging and the kissing and stuff on the cheek and things like that is that actually there are a number of ways in which society pressures people into conforming to physical contact. Now, I'm not saying that's right. And, I would like it if in the future, maybe people wouldn't kiss me on the cheek without asking, right? So it's not like I'm not getting consent, and I'm saying people should be able to do whatever they want boundary wise. I'm just saying that, like, I can understand, I think, what was going on there with that guy, and I don't think that he felt like he was assaulting her. You might say, well, of course he doesn't, but I don't think she felt it as an assault either. And I think that what you see on that Instagram live video afterward, where I know she says she didn't dig it or like it or whatever, however that translates, but like laughing and like And so I guess my question is it really proportional, the kind of outrage that this has generated and the kind of obsessive focus in some ways of the media that it's generated, and the Spanish government's investigating it, and Amnesty International is speaking out on it, and you have all these t-shirts now, and you've got the Guardian saying that this is the beginning of a new era of Me Too in sports and all of this, and I'm just thinking, oh, haven't we been down this road before? And, maybe too, it's because and I'm not trying to be condescending here, okay? Because I know a lot of people disagree with me who also know a lot about history. But I've read a lot of history in my life. I've never done a history podcast or a history video, but I mean, I used to teach history on film classes and spend a lot of time like dissecting World War One and the Vietnam War and all of that when I was teaching. And maybe it would be cool someday, even though it won't get hardly any views, to get into history on here. Kind of do a sort of, I could do like a Dan Carlin-esque thing, but it would be, with my own personality or whatever. But anyway, where am I going with that? Is I know so much history, and I've read so much history. I've listened to so many history podcasts, and the world is just so history is just so full of horrors and sexual assaults, like that 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 word, rape, sexual assault, like it's I think it should convey like the deepest of like these horrific things that actually do happen. And all these women who were gang in Berlin at the end of World War II, when, invading Russian forces came in. And by the way, it's not like a political anti-Russian thing there. It's just that I listened to a podcast. I've talked about this before, months ago, with my significant other who's really into history podcast, and it was about Berlin post World War II, and there was a whole chapter in there about the rapes, and it just went on, story after story after story. And I just wanted to I don't know, I wanted to throw up. I wanted to hit somebody. I don't know what I wanted to do. Um, but then with that stuff in mind, then I look at like what happened on the football field, and I'm just like, if we're going to get upset about that, at least let's have some proportion. And so I don't know. And I don't, you all know that all of these different political movements, they're just kind of icky. They start off icky, or they grow into something that's distasteful, that becomes basically a kind of authoritarian, sometimes a power grab, or a sort of authoritarian repression of people. And I don't know. I just and in the case of Me Too, a lot of falsely accused men. And so, that is the focus of my channel. And that's something that concerns me. And you might say, well, he's Rubiales, he's not falsely accused. Like, we're seeing him right there. He's kissing this woman. I know, but I'm just not, can't get on board with the interpretation of this, particularly the more extreme interpretation of this that is being promoted so much in the media. And so I think that when you actually talk to normal people, as with so many of these things, then even when you have opposing viewpoints, you're actually often on the same page. It's often a media thing, right? And media just wanting to stoke everything and amp it to the next level. And that's partly how I see myself and my channel is providing a kind of a counterweight to that. And sometimes, sometimes perhaps in a way that goes over the line myself, right? And so anyway, I look at that video, and I looked at it again and again and again, where he's kissing her again and again, and I just couldn't get the sense of something that needed to be amped up to where this guy is receiving the degree of castigation and public, opprobrium and shame, like he's a Weinstein. Like, I feel like it's okay. I feel like it's being sold to us like it's a Weinstein thing, and it's not. And I feel like I have such mistrust in the mainstream media and the way that they seem to want to take everything and it's not even like it's their fault as individuals, but it's the nature of the beast. And this is something that, like, Baudrillard, the philosopher of decades ago, talked about. It's the turning to hyper reality of society. And modernity would become more and more amped up, and more sensational, and more about slogans, and more about symbols and images and slogans over the actual truth. And so we would become, in Baudrillard's view, a kind of a very sort of loud, kind of loud zoo of all of these sort of like bullshit, a zoo of, as he said it, simulation where nothing would actually be real or ever tethered to reality. And so that's what it's like when I see that actual video with Rubiales kissing her. Yes, I understand to some degree the distasteful aspects of it. I see that he shouldn't have done that. I think some degree of criticism is merited there and a future change of behavior. But I also see all of this other stuff that's like popped up around it. That's just now we got, it's Me Too slogans, and this is the beginning of the Me Too revolution in sports or in Spain. And I know this, T-shirts. I'm with Ginny. We're all Ginny, and it's like now she's going to be the poster child for Me Too, and I'm sure she'll be going around. She'll be doing interviews, and people don't like that Luis Rubiales is standing up for himself, but what is a man supposed to do if he really doesn't think that what he did merits the kind of backlash that he's getting, or the degree of attention, or the consequences that he's getting? Is he just supposed to say, "You're right," and go away? Like, what is that? Like that is no way to be as a human being. And I'm not talking about people who realize that there is a time and a place for silence, and we can have disagreements on when that time and place is. But I'm saying that I feel like what society is expecting from Rubiales and expects from these men and these accused, and it's not all men, by the way. I've talked about the Lizzo thing before. That's a whole other can of worms. But it's gonna be women too, and I'll get to that in a moment. But people just expect that these people, when they're, to their mind, falsely accused, that they're just supposed to say, "Yes, ma'am, thank you. Yes, sir, thank you. I accept my punishment. Thank you. Yes." That's just no way to be, or to expect someone to be. And it is gonna catch women increasingly. Look, to backtrack a bit, one of the things that I said in that short video that I did was that these men, these Spanish footballers or whatever, who are trotting out on the fields as they did yesterday, last night, with "We are all Ginny," Ginny, the supposed victim, "We are all Ginny" on their shirts. Those guys, they think, one of two things: they're scared shitless that it's going to come for them in some way, and so they're like, "Okay, we got to put our distance here between this, because look, if we don't take a stand, the media are going to notice that the male soccer players are not standing up for Jenny, and they're not standing up for women's rights and against sexual assault and whatever, and so we don't want them thinking that. So we need to get on board. We need to take a stand." I guarantee you that's probably what happened. Or if I want to be more charitable to these guys and their intention, they really are, I hate to say it, but my word, brainwashed to think that what they witnessed there was some kind of severe sexual assault. And I hate to say brainwashed, because I don't even believe in that idea. And also, I know there are a number of you who don't agree with what I'm saying, and I'm not implying you're brainwashed, but I'm just saying, like, the way that you're telling me there wasn't one guy on that team who didn't want to wear that shirt, who didn't feel in some way pressured to? Like, they all are just totally on board with this and wanted to wear that shirt, "We are all Ginny"? I mean, maybe they did. Um, maybe they did. But what I have to say to them is, don't be deceived. You, gentlemen, you are not all Ginny. You are potentially the next target for this stuff. And I said you're potentially Ginny's target, and I don't mean literally that she's going to go it's after these guys. And I've got actually nothing against her in particular, except that she did seem to very quickly grow from her attitude of like, "Ha, ha, ha, whatever," to then like, "I was aggressively victimized." So I don't know, but people, they can sleep on things, they can think on things, and they can come to decisions about something that happened to them, and I change their mind, and I actually am okay with that. Particularly with the fast turnaround time here, it's not like she sat on this for months and months and then decided, "Oh, I'm gonna take a stand against it." So whatever. So her mind has changed, but that's fine. But these guys, either they are trying to kind of save themselves, or they really feel solidarity with her and they really think something horrible happened to her. But at any rate, they need to understand, when they say "We are all Ginny," you are not all Ginny. You are all potentially the next targets, or your brothers, or your friends, or your sons. And I'm not trying to say, "Oh my God, women are awful and evil and watch out." I'm just saying that there are certain forces in society that are very strong right now, and that I think are not getting weaker. And, I thought maybe the Amber Heard thing had put a big dent in it. I did. I had the hope that the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial had really dealt a big blow to Me Too. And this is why, look, let me just say, because in case he hears this, that umbrella guy, I have to say, okay, lots of non sequiturs here, as Amber Heard would say, but I've got a lot in my mind. Okay, so I'll try to stay on target here. I don't have ADHD that I know of. Someone can diagnose me through the TV, through the screen. Uh, that umbrella guy, after the trial ended, after Depp versus Heard ended, and he kept reporting a lot, and we all did to an extent, but he kept reporting on that. And he has continued to report on that since then. And to this day is still reporting a lot on, primarily on Amber Heard stuff, Johnny Depp stuff, the media's response to that. And sort of, I guess what I'm trying to say is, for a while I thought, I wonder, it doesn't really make so much sense to me, or like, I think he probably strategically he needs to move on to something else in a bigger way. And I know he's been covering other things. I mean, he covered the Eliza Blue thing a lot, and I don't mean to in any way impugn him, but I'm saying that there was part of me that was like strategically, like, okay, is he going to move on at some point? And it's like, I did not understand what I'm seeing now, which is that this Me Too stuff was not dealt a really huge blow by Depp versus Heard, because the media are not accepting it. And they are rewriting the narrative. They are trying to rewrite the narrative. And people, the Amber Heard stands and the Amber Heard supporters, they are trying so hard to rewrite the narrative. And so, and I'm seeing that the lessons really have not been learned in other cases that are popping up. And whatever you think about the Rubiales thing, okay, even if I'm wrong on that, like, there are a lot of other cases now that are popping up that seem to have these same dynamics at work. And so it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, it's kind of like that Faulkner saying that the past isn't dead, it's not even past. And I'm kind of starting to see that about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. And it's the fact that it is still very much not the past. And also, a lot of lessons that should have been learned from that have not really, I don't think, fully been learned. And the media are trying so hard to just to push the other way, to push the other way. And so I say all of that just to, I guess, convey to you that in some ways I'm not even as interested in the actual sort of human dynamic of what's going on here, but in this sort of larger messaging that has so quickly sprouted everywhere around it, and that seems to just be connected to, or kind of reinforced by, a lot of this other BS that's been going on. So anyway, I don't know. But if it's not like I really care about Luis Rubiales being suspended for 6 months. It's not, I didn't shed a tear for him. I'm sure that he is an asshole and douchebag and whatever. Like, I don't want to malign him if he's not, but I'm just saying, the guy seems to have a kind of bravado about him. I could see in the way that he stood up to everyone at that lecture when they expected him to resign. You can look up the video yourself if you haven't seen it, but Rubiales, a couple of days ago, he was expected to resign. And he instead emphatically said over and over, no, I will not resign. No, I will not resign. I mean, the type of personality that has it in them to stand up against all of the media coverage he's been getting, and the anger, and I'm sure all of the nasty messages and emails and phone calls, and all of these people hating his guts and thinking that he's like the new Weinstein. The balls it has, the balls that he has, the guts that it takes. I don't even care if he is a douchebag or whatever, but the guts that it takes to stand up there and emphatically say, no, 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 that is a very admirable quality, apart from whether he may have done sleazy stuff. And there is a part of me that really admires that, because I know how difficult it is to do that. And so my point is that sometimes in life, we do have to kind of understand that every positive human characteristic is also balanced with a negative characteristic. And that doesn't excuse people doing criminal things or abusive things. But it may be, the same thing that gives this guy his bravado and makes him the president of the Spanish Football Association or whatever, and makes him kind of, I don't know, an entertaining figure in Spain, is the other thing that makes him get kind of carried away, or not. I don't know. And look, if they want to get him on legitimate stuff, if it is true that he's throwing orgies with football money, like, I don't know, I don't have time to research it, but if it's true that he's doing that, and then he's behaving in ways that are clearly disreputable, If he has a pattern of going around forcibly kissing women, if this really wasn't a one-off, but this is his boundary invasion is what he does, okay, then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. But I'm just saying that the larger narrative that is sprouted up around it and what I'm seeing now pushed in the media, and it makes me, it does make me very uncomfortable. Uh, I also ask, as I said in my last video, that if we are now going to decide or have decided as a society that this kind of forcible kissing is not acceptable, and you might say, wait, when was that not decided? Well, for people who are not of a certain age, you may not realize this, and I'm not justifying it or saying it's okay, but you may not realize it, but there actually is a long tradition of society, mainstream society, accepting forcible kisses in a spirit of joy. I'm not saying, look, I don't even like people kissing me on the cheek, okay? Remember? I'm not saying it's okay, but there's a very famous photo. Most people know what I'm talking about. I don't feel like bringing it up. But I mean, I guess I could get off my lazy ass and actually show it. But most of you know the photo. It was the end of World War II, and I have to find it. It was the end of World War II, right? And there was this famous photo. Was it in New York City or a major city where this soldier, was he a sailor? Um, he's kissing apparently a woman that he didn't know. Okay, yeah, I found it. And I understand that that woman has now, has she, did she complain about it or something? I know that this was reported some time ago. It was kind of like revitalized in the media for people's consideration and people looking back and saying, well, wait a minute, maybe that wasn't okay. And I'm not saying it's okay necessarily, but this is the photo. Okay, so you can see that. Yeah, so this is the photo, and this was a celebrated, oh, it looks like it was the cover of Life magazine. Okay, so this was a hyper celebrated photo for decades, and something that up until very recently, people would have looked at with a sense of joy, a sense of romanticism, a sense of like patriotic fervor. Oh, look at, they're so overjoyed and everything. And people have pointed out, well, look, she's actually not into it. She's kind of leaning back. You don't know what she's feeling. And I think that that woman since then, in the last maybe like 10 years, was quoted as saying that it wasn't something that she necessarily wanted, right? Or and she didn't come out and like blast it or whatever. It was something like that, or trying to paint herself as a victim. But she was basically saying, yeah, it wasn't consensual exactly. And I'm not saying that this is okay. I don't think that this is okay. But what I'm trying to say is that there is, for whatever reason, there is a long history in society of this being not only tolerated, but even something that was considered in some ways kind of a time when you could relax the social norms if something really amazing had happened. Like, how many of you have seen movies? Okay, how many of you have seen movies? Just a minute, make this go away. How many of you have seen movies where something amazing happens, like they finally like beat the villain or blow up the submarine, or I don't know, Indiana Jones or whatever, like there's some great triumph and then they turn to each other and the guy will kiss the woman forcibly. Again, I'm not saying that's right. But or even the Katy Perry thing, which I actually thought was pretty appalling, and a lot of you know what I'm talking about, right? Katy Perry was on some kind of show. Was it the music show she does? I don't keep up with all that shit. But anyway, the music show that she does, and there was like a younger guy, not like an old teenager. Wasn't he like mid-teens, early teens? I don't remember, but like someone that looked like a younger, like a kid almost. And she asked if he had ever been kissed, and he said, "No, I haven't been kissed." And he said, "I'm saving it for my wife. I'm saving that experience for my wife." And so what does Katy Perry do? She gets up, doesn't prepare him, say anything, ask if it's okay, and she kisses him. And I'm like, I mean, I think the context is extra heavy because we're talking about someone who has never done this before, has just said he's never done this before. Someone who is, speaking of someone who looks a little young to be doing this stuff, right? Since that's been one of the subjects on this channel for many, many months. This guy, this kid. And then the fact that he told her he didn't want to. He said, I'm saving it for my wife. So basically, he might as well have, it is basically like, I mean, to me, that is an assault there. And or that is as close as we could get to using that term for kissing someone on the lips, as I would feel comfortable using. So it's not like I don't understand. the discomfort with this. I'm just saying that there is this very long history of like when she did that, I know people have complained about it since then, especially lately, but there was no outcry, there was no campaign against her. And so my point is just that this is not that it's okay and not that people should be able to do this, but that it's something that is and has been a kind of a semi gray area up to this point in terms of the degree of severity with which it should be regarded. And so to me, it is kind of a surprise and concerning to see the degree to which this is whipping up the kind of frenzy that you would expect almost if he did actually assault her on that occasion. Now, the last thing I want to say about this before I move on is that, since we are deciding that this is absolutely this is intolerable conduct, I do think it would be kind of interesting then if we could revisit all contact, right? Because there might be a lot of us who don't even like even the expectation of shaking hands. I know COVID sort of messed with that a little bit, but like if someone sticks out their hand at you, you kind of feel like coerced, don't you? Don't you feel coerced into shaking their hand as well? All those grimy germs on it, and they've been like jerking off or whatever. No, well, they may have been. Like, you don't know. You don't know. They could be like Matthew McConaughey in, was it The Wolf of Wall Street? And he told him when he hired Leonardo DiCaprio, Jordan Belfort, he told him that his secret to life was jerking off 3 times a day, or was it 3, or was it more? But anyway, he'd run to the bathroom. He said, anyway. So my point is, though, you don't want that on your hands, and yet you don't know if someone reaches out to shake your hand if that's what's going on. You could, well, anyway, I don't want to carry that to its next conclusion, but you can imagine the ramifications of shaking that person's hand. No, I'm being satirical and facetious, right? I'm trying to point out, okay, that actually there are all kinds of ways in which we view it as acceptable in society to cross people's physical boundaries or to even violate their discomfort. There have been several times in my life when I've made it clear to family members, and we're talking female family members who, not people who are, I would imagine, getting sexual jollies out of it, but like some female family members that I don't want to be hugged or kissed on the cheek. And they kind of laugh, and they're older, but they kind of laugh and they're like, basically like, come on, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're gonna let your grandma kiss you or whatever. It's not my grandma, but it's that sort of thing. And so I'm like, so I guess there is a part of me that believes that in life we will all have to go through experiences that make us uncomfortable, and I don't think that going to DEF CON 1 over the most minor and really perhaps absent-minded of infractions, especially in a very unusual context like that, I have some issues with it. So we'll see where it goes. We will see where it goes, for sure. And like I said, I could be wrong. It's kind of like even a broken clock is right twice a day. Well, my philosophy when it comes to YouTube and to what I do, and this is how I'm able to sort of live with myself or live with the fact that I know people are going to get angry at me at some point, is that I realize that if I talk and talk and talk over months and years, it's been what now, almost 3 years, 2.5. If I talk and talk and talk, eventually I'm going to say stuff that not only upsets people, but that also is wrong. Like, I do not believe, I hate to break it to you all, but I actually do not believe that I'm 100% infallible in my opinions and perspectives and in my expression of them. And so I hate to say, but there have been times, and there probably will be times when I will not be correct about something. So all I can do is just keep getting on here and sharing my perspective. And it's not like I have some idea that I'm going to change anything. Really, pretty much all of this stuff is going to be what it's going to be no matter what. But I am just trying to basically be this small voice for some contrarian thinkers who might have one idea but haven't been exposed to the other idea. So if people have one idea about this Spanish football thing and they hear me and they consider it, but then they're like, oh, that son. They hear me, they consider it, but then they say, no, I think that he deserves what's happening, and I think we deserve this conversation as a society, and this is proper and right. Then great, right? Seriously. Okay, so everybody, I'm going to take a moment here to again thank my mods and to point everyone to my links below. Oh, Laura B, this is great. Thank you. So Laura B found the interview. All right, awesome. I will. I don't want to waste everybody's time trying to put it up now, but everybody can find this, and I'll put it in the comments too when I turn this off. I'll put it in the comments as well. But people can watch this on their own. I'll be watching it, but that's great. Thank you. Okay, what was I going to say? Yes, so thank you to my mods. Check out my links below. I have my PayPal, my Patreon down there. So I'm really behind on some of the Patreon stuff, and honestly, sometimes I don't know, and I'm just being totally honest. I don't know why people are sticking with me because I am neglectful of it, and it's not something that I like or that I feel okay about, but it's just that I'm just being pulled in so many different directions and so forth. So it was hard enough, and I don't want to complain about going on vacation because it's what my family wanted me to do. I had a good time, but it was kind of hard having just all of that time where I really couldn't do more than just put in a video on YouTube every few days. But all of this is to say that my plan for tomorrow was to do a long live stream, not long like, I mean, long like a couple of hours, like maybe like 3 hours, but for my patrons. And so I'm sorry if you're not a patron, then sorry, you won't get it. But just to let people know who are on my Patreon patrons that I'm going to be doing that because tomorrow and going back to the Patreon a bit because I've been neglectful. Okay. But anyway, my links are below. You can see them in the comments, or not in the comments, maybe in the description. Okay, next topic, the Marilyn Manson stuff. I think so. First of all, I want to explain why I'm even telling people that I'm doing this. That I'm going to. I hate to use the term cooperate because it sounds so close to collaborate. It's collaborators. I'm going to no, but I'm going to agree to license some of my footage from my YouTube to the people at Channel 4 UK apparently making a multi-part documentary on Marilyn Manson. I have some knowledge of what it's going to be about in the sense that it seems to me, not only from what they've told me, which I would never automatically trust, especially with the media, but not only from what they told me, but what I have heard from some other people that they approached for interviews and people who may have decided not to work with them or whatever, but people that they approached for interviews. It seems like they want to do a much longer retrospective on his biography and his history, and it's not just going to be a phoenix rising. Now I say just because that they're going to spend a hell of a lot of time covering the allegations. They would not be doing, oh, look at that sun. I'll shut it in a minute. That they would that they're going to spend a hell of a lot of time in this 3-part documentary series covering the allegations against him and providing, I'm sure, in great detail, Evan Rachel Wood's perspective. I'm not saying she's going to be in it, although she seems like she would grasp at any chance to get her calumnies and lies and attacks on Brian Warner out there. But I'm sure that they'll get access to Phoenix Rising footage, or they'll have a lot of stuff. I would think from the accusers and just from things that have been published, even and so forth. So I am sure that it's going to have a strongly negative streak in it, and who knows? It could be a total hit job. Like it could be Phoenix Rising Part 2. I mean, it could. That's French there for some of you. It's like the only French I know. No, but Phoenix Rising Part 2. Like worst case scenario, it could be that. That is not seeming to me what is sort of shaking out from the little that I know and from what I know of what their interactions with other people. But always expect the worst. Prepare for the worst. And so I guess that what my feeling is, what it comes down to is, first of all, everybody has to do what is best for them. And particularly some of you who are being approached for material that specifically makes that paints Manson in a negative light. And so I totally understand anyone and everyone turning them down when this production company asked for material. But I've thought about it, and it could be a big mistake, but I've gamed it in my mind. I've thought about it, talked to some people, and I feel like if they're going to do a hit piece anyway, that I would rather take the risk and at least have them potentially exposed to, or maybe slip in a little bit of a different perspective for Manson. And, Depp versus Heard, and I said this in my little video, Depp versus Heard, that 3-part series that everyone's upset about, and I understand why. But Depp versus Heard, even though I feel like that was overall a negative piece toward Johnny Depp, and look, I didn't like the way that they depicted me in that. I had a little 30-second cameo in there that actually I think was maybe one of the worst in terms of the stuff that I was saying about Johnny Depp, because I was alluding to, or I was talking about the Deuters text where Amber is accusing Johnny of doing bad things, and it seems like Deuters is kind of agreeing to it, although I really think he was just trying to mollify her, as Johnny Depp said they often would. But I said something in Depp versus Heard that they took really kind of out of context, and it basically implied that I felt like there were these really damning texts out there about Johnny, but thank God they're not going to get let in because they would show that he's really violent to Amber, and had this ominous music and all of that. I'll probably do a video about it this week. But anyway, so like I fully get what kind of game we're playing here. However, we also have to concede that in that same 3-part documentary, there were many, 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 many times where they gave voice to criticism of Amber. Even often at times when they were trying, when you could see that the documentary makers were trying to malign Johnny Depp supporters, or trying to place a number of us in a negative light. Oftentimes, I have to say it was kind of, and I know they don't appreciate it or want it or whatever, but it kind of, I think, was some good PR, good promotion for some of those people who were in it a lot, like Popcorn Planet and Darth News and some of the others. And what I believe about media, particularly about new media, is that it's a beast that demands to be fed, and that it will consume, even at times, it will consume and reproduce stories that it does not agree with, unknowingly often. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, let's just go worst case scenario, okay? Let's say that Channel 4 UK, and by the way, Channel 4 UK will be watching this, so hello. But let's just say, or maybe they won't, but Channel 4 UK, let's say, worst case scenario, 3-part documentary, let's say that part 3 is this: crazy misogynist YouTuber groomed to be Marilyn Manson's henchman or henchwoman, because we've got to be politically correct, and I'm not a man, unless I want to be trans. That's the worst case scenario. Like, I see it. I see it. But you know what it's going to be? But that's probably not going to happen. Probably the thing that's really going to suck is they're probably only going to take like a few snippets of my work, and it'll be something that paints, me or Manson in a negative light. But I'll just be like, kind of like I was with Depp versus Heard. But let's just take that worst case scenario that they made a whole episode about how evil I am and I'm doing Brian Warner's bidding. What is that going to add in terms of real negativity to all of the other stuff that's already out there? Like, the worst thing has already happened, and it was called Phoenix Rising and Ed and Rachel Wood. All that congressional testimony, all of those stupid, fucking idiotic politicians just eating it up, just lapping it up. And she sits there and tells that idiotic story, just reads from her script. When I was a little girl, I met a man. He seemed like he was a good man, but I didn't know I was very young. I was so very young. He took advantage of me. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, he's so brave. He's so brave. She looks up at one point as if asking God to give her strength for what lies ahead. Come on. But all that shit's already out there. And she did The View, and she did, what else did she do? Well, she did View, she did Drew Barrymore, she did Trevor Noah, she did ABC News, she did like a lot. I mean, it's out there, and just the worst stuff. He electrocuted me. He stabbed me. He bit me. He tied me up. He played these horrible sex games, blah, 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 blah. And then the others too, Esme Bianco doing her interview with that stupid back photo, the head cut off, and obvious just rope marks from whatever BDSM or bondage bullshit she was up to. BDSM artist. No, burlesque. No, I'm sorry. It's neo-burlesque dancer. That's how you know you've got a really sophisticated woman. Neo-burlesque. And that's not a dig at Dita. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Esme? Hello? I'm going to quote a famous politician from the past. I knew Dita Von Teese. Dita Von Teese was a friend of mine. You, madam, you are no Dita Von Teese. Some of you who are too young might be scratching your head. You know Dita Von Teese? No, no, no. It's a political story, okay? You can look it up. What was it? Was it Lloyd Benson? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm aging myself like this. Lloyd Benson, Dan Quayle. You look it up. Now, I'm going to take a break. I have to get this light out of my face before it ages me like 10 years. So let me do that, take a little break, and I'll be right back. Okay, a few minutes. All right, mods, don't let anyone leave. Okay. Oh, I wasn't gone that long. I went to get a drink, but then I forgot about the sun. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna fix the sun. Be right back. Okay, there we go. The sun's going down anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. I'm gonna unplug my sound or my headphones, plug them back. Oops. Here we go. Let me know if there's any sound issues. I think I fixed it, and we'll continue. Okay. Um, they'll probably cut out what I just said. What did I say? Let's just make sure we really reinforce it in case they didn't catch the first time. I was crazy, misogynist YouTuber groomed by Marilyn Manson to be his henchman. That's probably the only part they'll cut out and they'll use. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, people. And I don't mean, first of all, let me say, I don't mean to be trivial about this. You know, part of my show and my brand is humor. And I'm not at all implying that this is in any way a humorous situation for Brian Warner. It's a fucking disaster. It has been a fucking disaster for 2.5 years. And for the foreseeable future, it looks like a fucking disaster. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying, like, the guy is well and truly, it is a long road out of hell, and he is trudging through hell. And if there's anything that I guess at times when I've implored him to speak out, I guess if there's anything that I feel like maybe I've not been cognizant enough about, it's the idea that this is someone who, you know, well and truly is just going through hell. And so, you know, we're all in different perspectives, each of us. We all have our own subjective experiences, and also, you know, a lot of us just don't know what each other are thinking or going through. And so I totally concede and accept that that Manson doesn't have to or need to in any way answer to me, and he needs to do absolutely what's best for him. And I may be totally off about a lot of these things, right? But I can only, like, I can't get afraid and just not do anything. I can't be paralyzed by anxiety. And so we have to move forward in the world, each of us in whatever way we think is best, understanding that basically it's always a kind of a roll of the dice to an extent. And so I thought about the downside, and I thought about the worst case scenario, which is that they just make me look absolutely deranged, misogynist, awful, and by extension that they can't ruin Manson by way of me. But what they could do would be to say, and look, here's this awful woman that's taking up his cause, that he's associated with by virtue of the fact that, she's defending him and everything. It's like they basically be like one more black mark on him. For me, it could be total, like, destruction of someone's reputation. And I mean, it would very much be sealing my fate, that I would never be able to have some kind of normal, I'm not trying to overplay this, but I'm just saying in terms of like a Google search or whatever, that it would be very hard for me to get back into the line of work that I used to do, or maybe a number of lines of work. So my point is just to say, I understand the gravity of the situation. I understand the seriousness of the situation. Okay. But I also have always sort of lived by this code, or this feeling that in life, stagnation is a very real danger, and that you cannot escape difficulty. And I'm talking about myself here, but you cannot escape difficulty by being still. Neither should you rush headlong into a bad situation or a bad decision. So I've thought about it in my mind, the potential significant and perhaps very likely downside of this, and everybody has to make the decision that is best for them. But I think that my participating in this, to whatever extent they end up using my stuff, and again, I don't even be anything, but the extent to which they do, it is not going to make it significantly worse for Manson, because they already have all the terrible stuff. And I say terrible, not like I believe any of it, but I'm just saying, like, they can't, you can't kill someone again if you've already killed them, right? In a way. And I mean, that Phoenix Rising thing. We know it was ridiculous. We know that documentary was ridiculous. And someone with a brain and a skeptical sensibility might be able to detect it too. But for most people, they're gonna watch that. I mean, even my mom said, if I didn't know what you had told me, Kristen, I would just be thinking, this man is awful. Because it's so easy to believe, she said, because just look at him. And and the stuff that she had in that documentary, that scene, I don't want to talk about it, because I don't want to draw anyone's attention to it who might be watching. But there's a scene in there, that would make him look really bad if you didn't understand that it was obviously a joke. But I mean, I'm just saying, there's stuff in that documentary, and they're going to be pouring over it. And then I would imagine, getting lots of participation from some of the accusers and Evan Rachel Wood. And so, anyway, I think that there is this hope of mine that they will do some version, maybe, though, of what Depp versus Heard did, in the sense that even though Depp versus Heard, I do think, was slanted against Johnny Depp, and certainly slanted against social media personalities, it was, in some ways, it was more of a social media documentary than it was an anti-Depp documentary. But they did give voice to a lot of the complaints and critiques of social media people, and that draws people's attention ultimately to the alternative perspective. If people are really interested in Depp versus Heard, and they watch that documentary, and they see Popcorn Planet keeps coming up with interesting statements, even if the documentary is slanting them in a bad way, but interesting statements, and you've got Darth News on there and whatever, like, people will go and check it out. And I would rather people see me in a negative light. If that is what happens, I would rather them see me in a negative light, but at least think, wait a minute, there's another perspective, or wait a minute, who is she? Or wait, well, why is she saying that Evan Rachel Wood is a liar? Why? What's going on? And instead, without me, it's going to be Marilyn Manson is a monster. Marilyn Manson's a monster. Marilyn Manson's a monster. Whereas it could be Marilyn Manson is a monster. Marilyn Manson is a monster. But there's some people saying that Marilyn Manson is not a monster, and saying Evan Rachel Wood's a monster. I mean, that can slip in there. And who knows, maybe we win the lottery and we actually get someone fair, or the people making this turn out to be fair, or through exposure, And I know it's a long shot, but to exposure to my work, maybe they see, huh, you know what? I mean, look, I mean, there is kind of another perspective here. Maybe we should give some voice to this, put this in. I mean, they did do that for Depp versus Heard. I don't like that documentary either, y'all, but we do have to admit that it wasn't totally one-sided. There were actually there's a lot of court testimony, a number of statements, and even commentary by social media people that got a lot of hits in for Depp. So my sense of this project, and I could be totally wrong, but my sense of this is not that they are wanting to do Phoenix Rising Part 2, but that they're wanting to do something probably closer to a Depp versus Heard, but also focusing more on his career. And I know people say focusing more on his career than Depp versus Heard did. I mean, and I know people say, well, we've been talking to some fans, and the fans say that they're only interested in Marilyn Manson talking about, doing drugs or risque things or in a negative light. And then, yeah, there'll be a lot of that. Um, and so I understand. I understand that people don't, because that's the titillating stuff, and that's why Manson said it in the first place. And so it's not just out of a desire to get Manson, but it is also because those are very titillating things for a documentary. And if they weren't titillating, he wouldn't have said them. And so again, some of what we're seeing, unfortunately, and I don't want to call it karma because that sounds like it's deserved and it's not, but some of what we're seeing here is a kind of a cause and effect of someone who has for years and years and years put out all this stuff about himself in order to make people go, what? Huh? Because it worked and it just stopped working. The wave just hit the wall and crashed. And it is very unfortunate because he is innocent of this shit that he's been accused of. And we have some very disturbed, opportunistic women who have hijacked a pseudo feminist agenda and have hijacked the MeToo agenda and are just really wreaking havoc in our society in a lot of ways, and ultimately are setting women back and setting back relations between the genders, and also ensnaring a number of innocent men in this trap. So I don't hold out any hope really that or delusion, I should say, that I'm going to be able to, turn anything around for Manson, or it's going to change from an anti-Manson piece to a pro-Manson piece. But I just, I've weighed out the pros and the cons, and that's where I've come down. But again, everybody has to do what they need to do. And I know, like, Stand By Your Manson Today, which has always been my favorite Manson source, Marilyn Manson source, related to the accusations and the hoax, right? And still continue to be. They put out a statement today really urging fans to consider the downsides and to consider what kind of footage they're being asked for, and to err on the side of safety and not giving material. And so and I reposted that on my page because I totally support that sentiment. And again, I could be making a mistake, but we will see what shakes out. The reason why I decided to say anything, so just so people understand, there has always been, it kind of comes and goes, but there has always been interest in the Marilyn Manson thing by various outsiders. And so there have been occasions when various people have kind of floated in and out, or organizations, or people wanting to do documentaries or whatever, kind of floating in and out and voicing interest. But for a number of reasons, it doesn't turn out to happen. And I don't talk about those. And so understand that it's not like I just wanted to share, like, oh my God, I got Channel 4 or whatever. But coming to a theater near you, no, but it's just that I was starting to hear people talking or seeing, I guess, in my DMs and chats and stuff, that people were being contacted. And I just felt like it was inevitable that people, well, it was more than that. I felt like it was inevitable that people would find out I'm doing this. Well, I mean, it's inevitable if it comes out, obviously, and you see me in it. But I mean, even before that, I thought that it would probably get around, or I thought I would be asked about it. And so that's part of it. I just want to say, okay, I'll just tell you what's going on. And there was no desire for privacy or secrecy on the part of the person that I've been talking with, corresponding with at UK Channel 4, who's making the documentary, or their production company or whatever. So, I mean, it's not like I was breaking some desire for confidentiality. But that was part of it. And then part of it was I really wanted people to understand that this is not something that I'm trying to sneak through the back door. Oh, hey, AJ. Hello, hello. Oh, you've missed so much. miss so much. I don't know how you'll ever catch up, AJ, ever. AJ asked, "What did he miss?" Oh, I'm sorry. I've been neglectful of this chat this time, but that's a good comment. Holy Dustbin. Young people now can't imagine that Johnny Depp was ever a handsome man and a real movie star, and Manson was ever mainstream. Well, you're gonna get you might get some disagreement from people on that first statement about Johnny Depp. No, but you're right. I'll get back to what I'm saying in a second. But on the heels of what you're saying here, Holy Dustbin, I went on Pop Culture Crisis, which is a show based out of Maryland, and they're really cool. I posted it on my YouTube as well, so check that out. But anyway, they're one of their co-hosts, Mary Morgan. She's only well, I don't know. Maybe she doesn't want me to tell people her age, so I'd be careful. But let's just say like she's significantly younger than I am. And we were talking, the other co-host, Brett, and I, we were talking about Manson's autobiography, which we know has a lot of fictional material in it and was ghostwritten and all of that. I've been over all that, right? It's not fact, okay? There's a lot of heavy fiction. But we were talking about some of the things, the more offensive aspects of that book, because she was curious about the book and what is it about and what are the bad things that are attributed to Manson. And so anyway, we were talking about some of the stuff, and I said, but I said, I said, probably a lot of that was made up. And in fact, we know, even from the disclaimer on the book, that it was heavy fictionalized. And she asked, but why would he want to make up those stories? Why would he want to say he did those things? Like, why would he want to say he urinated on a fan at a concert? Like, why? And that's where I was very aware of the age difference and the generational difference, was that people understood back then, or people had this appreciation back then for the idea of something being edgy, and you were into the music that would make your parents angry. And I don't think today young people are like that. I think young people like their parents a lot more than we did. It was, in the 90s, in the 90s and maybe in the early 2000s, when Manson was, was really at his height, I think in a lot of ways, just in terms of media, it was really cool to not like your parents and to be independent and say, oh, they're whatever, and fuck you, mom, and and fuck you, church, and fuck you, God, maybe even, or what. Like, there was just this real, like, and what there wasn't was any kind of what we would recognize today as modern MeToo sensibility. You had Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas in the early 90s. Okay, that was kind of maybe the canary in the coal mine. Look it up if you don't know. But Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. And so you'd have some of these isolated cases that were kind of harbingers of what was to come. But you didn't really have any of this kind of victim obsessed feminist sensibility. Yes, women were talking about, or feminists were talking about rape, sexual assault. Date rape was a really big term that we don't use as much anymore now, but a lot of focus on date rape. So I'm not saying that it was completely absent from the discourse, but I'm just saying that it was a very different time, and you had such an appreciation for people, artistically speaking, entertainers who would push the envelope. It was cool if you got arrested. You had the whole gangster rap thing. It was all about being like edgy, pushing the envelope, hyper masculine. And I don't say that negatively necessarily, like toxic masculinity, but I'm saying hyper masculine and stuff. And so and we didn't have social media. We didn't have a lot of this stuff where people could just constantly monitor everyone and comment on their behavior, and you could destroy someone in a day. You couldn't destroy someone in a day back then. So things are just very different. And so when you said there, a holy dustbin, about how young people today can't comprehend that Marilyn Manson was once mainstream, they can't also comprehend how or why his artistic persona and his shtick, for lack of a better term, why they were so effective, because they have hit a wall. And I'm not trying to be negative or whatever. And look, Manson's work, I've admitted many times that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to talking about his music. But like, it does seem like We Are Chaos was kind of a departure for him, that he was going off in a different direction, or we'll call it what you will. But anyway, I'm just saying that times change, and so he's in a pickle with that. But the reason why, getting back to one of the reasons why I am telling you this about Channel 4 UK now, is because I didn't want it to seem to people, when they do find out, like I'm sneaking something through the back door. And I don't think that I represent in any way Manson or the pro Manson community. I really don't think that. But I think that some people see me that way, and I can't ignore that there are some ramifications of that perhaps. And so I didn't want it to seem like one of Manson's biggest or most public defenders is collaborating with the enemy and like trying to sneak it through, you know? So it would be like, down the road, like, surprise. And I also wanted to show that I am willing to consider other perspectives. I'm not soliciting DMs here. I'm just talking about, reading comments and some people who've approached me and said, are you sure you want to do this? Or have you considered this? Or I don't think it's a good idea or whatever. I wanted to give those people the courtesy of having a shot at me, And I also felt that if I couldn't listen to those criticisms, then that showed that there was a problem with my position and I need to rethink my position. So this is what I'm planning to do. I'm going to do, but there's still a little time here and I can change my mind if I'm led to it. But overall, I just really wanted to let people know what's going on. I'm not trying to do anything shady or backhanded or underhanded or sneak it in the back door or whatever. Like, I'm doing this, but we will see what happens. Yeah. So I guess that's it. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the next topic. I wanted to talk for the rest of this program. I wanted to talk about the Johnny Depp topic, what's going on in the Johnny Depp community. And don't worry, even though the little preview that I posted, I was really dramatic and everything about it. I'm not going to be dramatic. That was just to try to get people interested. But I don't think it's like some huge thing or whatever. But I think that what is being argued about by people in the Johnny Depp community, I do think it's a really interesting topic. And I'm not saying that I come down on one side or the other of it because I am not well educated enough in the ins and outs of what's being argued or discussed to be able to make a statement on that. But I just think there are interesting questions being raised, and then also people are having interesting reactions to them. So I want to talk about that. And then in the time that we have after that, maybe a little of the Rammstein stuff. We'll see. Anyway, okay, so oh, wait, just a second. Calamity Jane says, very tragic, especially as even though men can win domestic violence claims and be a victim, yet still means nothing to the mainstream media spewing BS. I trust no documentaries now on top of MSN. Yeah, no, you shouldn't. You shouldn't trust anyone. And I don't. I really don't. I think though that you can mistrust someone, and if you think that you're taking a risk that is potentially more beneficial than harmful, however it shakes out, then I think that you can at times work with someone, even if their aim is different, and work with just to the extent really of giving them some more material. And of course, I had to think about as well, like all of the stuff that I have covered on my channel, and what are the things that they could, the stuff that I've covered on my channel, and really think through what could they potentially cherry pick. But, it may surprise you, and probably a lot of you are shocked to hear this, that actually every time I go online, every time I do an interview, every time I edit interviews, and not edit them to take away anything that's important or whatever, but understanding the way that things could be cut or taken out of context. Every time I produce a video, I try to really keep in mind that people who hate me and or hate Manson or are aligned against Manson can take any aspect of that and at any time throw it up anywhere and make me look terrible. And so make him look terrible. And so I really have tried over the years to conduct myself and to conduct my interviews and the production of videos with a real sense of caution in mind about what I'm putting out there, particularly things that I'm saying. And a real sense of caution also about how sometimes things could be cut a certain way to look bad. And so I say that just because I've thought about that as well. I know people are saying, well, they're asking fans for clips from Manson talking about drug use or whatever. But like, really, there's pretty much anything they take in some kind of isolation from me. It's not going to be some horrible nail in the coffin or whatever. I mean, I'm sad to say, because I say this with a kind of impotence, honestly, that I think that the worst stuff has already been done, and we're just going to continue to see the lingering effects of that in terms of Evan Rachel Wood and all, the whole other gang and all the stuff that they engaged in with that hoax. But anyway, we will see. We will see. But okay, so the Johnny Depp thing. I don't want to, and I don't want to say names because I'm not interested in putting the spotlight on anybody and putting or in directing anyone who might have disagreements with what people are saying to then go to them and say, how dare you say that? Or what are you thinking or whatever. But basically, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, my read on things is that there are some people who have been early pioneers in promoting Johnny's side on social media, people perhaps with YouTube channels, people who tweet a lot and have been really from the earliest, way before I was on the scene, have been on Johnny Depp's side and promoting Johnny Depp's side. And some of these people have been in ways that are in ways that are more subtle most of the time and may not be sort of in everyone's face, but in ways that I think are pretty subtle, but maybe have been getting less subtle, have basically, it seems to me, been suggesting that Brown Rudnick, the law firm that defended Johnny Depp, or that, well, not defended him, the law firm that represented him in that court case, that Brown Rudnick might have softballed, in some ways, softballed their representation of him, might have dropped the ball in terms of not presenting or promoting a lot of evidence that was left out that might have been much more damning for Amber Heard and or those associated with her, and that might have been even more exculpatory or more helpful for Johnny Depp. Kind of not through the game. They're not suggesting that Brown Rudnick threw the game, because obviously they didn't. Johnny Depp won. And we could see, all of us could see times when it seems like Johnny Depp's team was going all out to knock down Amber Heard. I mean, I cannot watch Camille Vasquez's cross-examination of Amber Heard on 2 different occasions, right? I cannot watch both of those cross-examinations and come away from that thinking that Camille was not doing anything but her absolute best. She clearly was. It was masterful, those cross-examinations, the grilling that she put Amber through. It produced some truly amazing moments, including that A Few Good Men-esque moment, revelatory moment, when Amber Heard conceded that she had written the op-ed to get Johnny Depp. And if you haven't seen it, I'll try to post it below in the comments, or you can look it up. But I did a video, a mashup of A Few Good Men, the courtroom scene with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. I did a mashup of that with Amber Heard and Camille going at it, with Camille going at Amber Heard. And it's like I don't like to often boast of my work, partly because I actually don't think most of the time I'm doing that great of a job, but also because it sounds, pretentious and pompous and everyone will hate me. But I am very proud of that mashup that I did. I think it's edited very well. I think it captures the essence of what was going on, both in the courtroom and in that scene, right? I think it's good. Just check it out. But yeah, it's a mashup. And Amber Heard is Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson has that moment where he says, because Tom Cruise has just been hammering at him and hammering at him. And Jack Nicholson has that moment where he says, "You can't handle the truth." And then he gives this speech. And then Tom Cruise is like, "Did you order the code red?" And he's like, "You goddamn right, I did." He said he ordered the code red. And that's what Amber Heard did when she said, "That's why I wrote that editorial. That's why I wrote the op-ed." You have to go back and look at her testimony to see like how I'm doing the facial expressions, right? Everything. She was so pissed at Camille that she was doing this like flicking of the head when she was talking, and she was doing like this. Of course, I have my eye disorder, so my eyes cross, but like she was doing this like thing with her eyes, like rolling them up in her head, and then she was like doing the kind of like the teenage sort of Valley Girl thing with the dropping the jaw, and kind of jaws out, outrage. If I wanted to do that, that. And so that was when she asked her about TMZ, though. Camille said, Camille basically said, you were the one, you called Morgan Tremaine to show up there to get pictures of you with your fake bruise, but with your bruise walking around court accusing Johnny of shit. And Amber was like, that is not true. If I wanted to, that. So anyway, but then she says, that's why I ordered the op-ed. That's why I ordered the op-ed. No, it's code red. That's why I wrote the op-ed. So she just admits basically to the entire premise of Johnny Depp's lawsuit against her. She just admits it there because Camille knew just the right way to hit at her. So anyway, back to what I was getting at. It was very clear that Johnny Depp's lawyers wanted to win, were trying to win, were doing all kinds of things to win, and that Camille delivered an excellent, withering cross-examination of Amber Heard. So you might say, well, what's the issue then? Okay, well, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Oh, wait. Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think that the worry or the concern being voiced by some, or the complaint being voiced by some, is that apparently there were a number of items of evidence, and I'm going to have to look into this more, okay? And you can talk about it in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. But apparently there were a number of items of evidence, particularly that would have been negative for Elon Musk or would have implicated him in some negative behaviors or some unsavory behaviors, not necessarily criminal or whatever, but just like stuff that he wouldn't want out there, that did not get into the trial. And Elon Musk apparently was a major client of Brown Rudnick in the past. And so I think that one of the concerns that's being voiced is that, yes, the lawyers were trying to win for Johnny Depp, but they may have taken the gloves off when it comes to Elon Musk, or when it came to presenting or emphasizing any evidence that would also malign Elon Musk. Now, again, that's all I know. And I'm going to look into this more, and I'm going to talk about it more if it continues to be of interest. But that's one of the questions that's been raised. Then another question, or another issue that's been raised, is how exactly Adam Waldman got off the legal team, or how exactly he was kicked off, or however you want to say it. Now, I understand that it was always understood, right, that Adam Waldman ran afoul of the judge. It was in the UK case, right? That Adam, there've been two cases, the UK case and then the Depp versus her, right? Well, Adam Waldman, that he ran afoul of the judge in the UK case because he published something on his Twitter, on social media, that was seen as being an inappropriate attack on one of the witnesses. And I don't think that it was. The judge was, I think, reading it a certain way that's not fair or appropriate. But anyway, that was a problem. And then there was also, he had been accused of leaking some things. I don't know if that was substantiated, but leaking some things, evidence or whatever, to the press or people or media. So again, I don't want to get too into specifics because I don't know the Depp stuff like I know the Manson stuff or the characters of the players enough to be able to get into the weeds on this. But I'm just trying to tell you, I spent a couple of hours skimming social media, conversations people were having. And so anyway, here's the thing then. So I think that a bunch of us always understood or thought that Adam Waldman was kicked off the Johnny Depp case or the Johnny Depp team as a kind of a direct result of these issues. But the suggestion that I think now some of these dissenting voices who are dissenting to the official narrative are making is that behind the scenes, we weren't aware of it, but behind the scenes, there was a significant effort made to shove Adam Waldman out, and that he did not necessarily have to quit the Depp team or be forced off the Depp team, or not participate in the Depp versus Heard trial. Like that was not mandated by a court. That didn't have to happen. But that, in fact, he was shoved off by these more sort of white shoe lawyers, these white shoe lawyers, as they like to say, sort of more sophisticated, don't want to get down in the trenches, don't want to get money, don't want to get Elon Musk money, perhaps, and they wanted to get rid of Adam. So again, I'm not saying that that's correct or it's incorrect or anything, and I'm not mentioning people's names who are alleging this because I don't even want to get into that can of worms. But I'm just saying that it is coming that argument, those objections are coming from some people that I really respect in the Depp community, but also I really respect some of the people who are resistant to that narrative. And so it's just very interesting, but it is an interesting development that it does seem in hindsight like there was a great deal of dissension between Adam Waldman and the kind of PR campaign, harder nosed, more social media oriented PR campaign, and maybe that he wanted to wage, and also courtroom campaign that he wanted to wage, bringing in stuff about Elon, hitting harder on certain things that Brown Rudnick chose to kind of be hands off on, or that maybe even flubbed. And then Brown Rudnick kind of coming in, perhaps with some of their ulterior allegiances, and conducting the case in such a way so that Johnny Depp won, but maybe did not win in as big, spectacular way, or a way that was just would be a complete repudiation of Amber Heard or even Elon. So anyway, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I will say this. So what can I add from my own perspective? Because again, I don't know any of this as well as the actual players involved and the people who are fighting over this stuff, debating it online. They've been in the Johnny Depp game, the Depp versus Heard game, much longer than I have. But I will say this. There were definite points in that trial, significant points in that trial, when I feel like Johnny Depp's team dropped the ball. And I'm not the only one, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say this because she said it on her own channel before and on my channel, but Andrea Burkhart, everybody's favorite lawyer, whom I collaborate with a lot, she said that she felt like they dropped the ball in very significant ways. Now, I want to be clear that Andrea is not aligned with this larger set of theories. I'm not saying she's against it, but like she's not in this discussion, right? But I asked her what she thought about it, and I don't want to give away any more of what she said either way. But she said because she didn't really, honestly, she won't mind me saying she didn't even really have an opinion. But I said, I feel like there were significant flaws in the way Brown Rudnick conducted that trial, or the way even Camille and Ben conducted that trial, in terms of some missed opportunities and things that I thought really didn't hit very well. And she said, yeah, I agree. But again, that doesn't mean anything because they ended up winning. And I give total props to people who can win a fucking case, because I know how hard it is just based on what I've seen looking at the documents in the Marilyn Manson cases. These civil suits that have been filed against him and the civil suit that he filed, and how all this stuff is shaking out, I see that it is very, very, very hard to conduct these types of defamation cases, and to not only conduct them, but to get the ball in the net. And so the fact that Ben Shu and Camille were able to do that, clearly tried to do it and were able to do it, that is huge. And so I understand people who say, look, they won. Don't nitpick. What's your problem? Hey, Silvano, it has been a little while since we talked. So that was the other thing too with my Patreon. I'm really behind in getting my my conversation times up. For some of my patrons who contribute more, I'll actually talk to them, but I'm so behind on that. I know people are probably pissed, but I'm going to do that also tomorrow. But with my patron stream. But anyway, Silvano, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hope you're well. Okay. I do understand, though, this argument that, like, look, they won. What's the problem? What is the problem? And I have to say, too, from the perspective of doing what I do, I know that there are so many times when I'm trying so hard. And again, I'm not trying to get on my victim box, and Ginny Hermoso. No, but I know that there are so many times when I'm trying my hardest and I'm trying to think about every angle, and I'm trying to, play the chess game, and and I know that I've got to push hard or I won't get anywhere, but then maybe not push too much, or I need to make jokes, but if some jokes might not be appropriate. Like, I'm always trying to juggle all this stuff and trying to be true to myself, but also keep my viewers reasonably happy. But like, I know how frustrating it is to do all of that and then have some people and it's inevitable, but have some people who are just focused on where I could have done better. Oh, you should have done that. You should have said that. Oh, you really messed up there. Oh, you're making a mistake there, whatever. And that's not to make people feel bad for offering constructive criticism or comments, but I'm just saying, like, I understand the sentiment of like, hey, come on, what more do you want? They won this case. There were times, especially with like Camille's cross examination, but also some things that the other lawyers were doing where they just nailed it and they won. So I get that, but I don't believe in just outright dismissing arguments just because I may not have as good of a grasp of them initially, or because they're unpopular. And I do think it's an interesting story if it were to turn out, theoretically, if it were to turn out that there were some ways in which Brown Rudnick treaded lightly or lighter than they might, or suppressed Elon Musk related evidence. If it were to turn out that happened, I mean, that's an interesting story. And that is something to discuss, because that would mean that Johnny Depp, as their client, believed that he was getting absolute total allegiance to him, total allegiance, when really, actually, Elon Musk was in the office the whole time, was in the conference room the whole time, was in the courtroom the whole time, in a way. Please, Channel 4 UK, don't clip that so it makes it sound like I'm crazy. Elon Musk is hovering in the courtroom. That motherfucker ain't real. That motherfucker ain't real. Dude, that's the way I'm going to start referring to Elon Musk, just because he seems like so creepy and he's probably listening to all of us, like somehow on our phones and stuff. That motherfucker ain't real. Well, if it's a simulation, like Elon Musk believes, then none of us are real. What was she even talking about? So that lady, the motherfucker ain't real lady, I'm going to come back to Depp Heard in a minute, but that motherfucker ain't real lady, what was she talking about? Like, was she just so drunk that or on some kind of pills or something, that her mind was just like, she was just in another zone? Like, or was she having like a psychotic episode? Has she explained it? I know she's made some PR videos, right? She's a PR person, PR specialist. And she's made some videos explaining herself. I saw a scene from one of them, or maybe it was like a promo ad or picture she put out, and she's sitting on her I'm showing my legs, like I said I wouldn't. But she's sitting on her kitchen floor like this, and there's like an oven here and cabinets here, and she's kind of like, it almost looks like she's in a tiny room or something, right? Because there's stuff on both sides, and she's sitting on her kitchen floor like this, and I'm like, is this supposed to make people think that you're not crazy, that you're sane? Is that the goal? Because you're not hitting the target, lady. Who's sitting in the middle of their cramped kitchen like that, smiling? I don't understand. So I don't know. I really doubt her PR skills. She's definitely like almost at her third strike with me. 3 strikes and you're out. So first strike was the whole meltdown on the plane. Second strike was sitting Indian style on the kitchen floor for your big picture. So we'll see what the third strike is, but okay. But let me say this about Depp versus Heard, okay? I said earlier that I did have some issues with them. Some people want to know, what are your issues? All right, well, I don't remember all of them, but I'll tell you some of them that I remember. And in fact, I did a video the first week of the Depp trial, the first day, or maybe it was the second day. But anyway, right after it started, I did a video where I was negative about things. I said, I don't think Depp had a strong opening. I don't think that their opening statements were very good. And so I was negative really in those first few days. But then like Isaac Baruch happened. Isaac was like a superhero. He needs to paint a picture. If someone can communicate back to Isaac Baruch, I can't even say his name. Isn't that terrible? Is it Baruch or Baruch? Anyway, if someone can convey back to Isaac, since he's an artist and he's okay with painting some wacky things, which is great. It's really interesting art. But he needs to paint a picture of him like in a superhero outfit, like flying into court to save the day, because that is exactly what he fucking did. And Johnny Depp, I know Johnny Depp gave him a place to stay, maybe still does. It's good that Johnny Depp is helping that guy out in life, and probably no matter what happens, willing to help him out for the rest of his life, because that guy kind of single-handedly changed the momentum, the negative momentum in that courtroom. And I was feeling down, and I wasn't the only one who was like, ugh, until Isaac came out and gave that jaw-dropping performance on the stand. And I don't know if he's crazy or he's crazy like a fox, but that was a masterful performance of someone appearing not to do anything when they're really being very strategic. So like he gave this appearance of like, I'm not being strategic. I'm just this, this sort of down home. I know that wasn't his accent. I'm sorry. His accent was like, what was it? Was it kind of like Bronx? He had like kind of a New York accent. Anyway, I can't do it, but it was kind of like this, like, I'm just a normal guy. I don't know how I got involved in this whole like celebrity thing, but there's this, but I'm friends with Johnny Depp. He's such a great guy, and there's this crazy woman who's just been beating him up, and he's been. Oh wait, am I not supposed to say that? And then she's like, Mr. Baruch, Mr. Baruch. Elaine's like trying to shut it down, and he just keeps talking. He's like, yeah, and she did that DV thing, that fake DV domestic violence hit, and she was trying to extort him, and he's just running on, and she's just like, Mr. Baruch, Mr. Baruch. Oh man. Um, so he saved the day. He saved the day. He was the first superhero of that whole trial. So anyway, so here's my point: is that I felt like Camille and Ben Chew's opening statements were not good. And that's no slight against them, because I think overall they conducted themselves really well. And like Camille, I mean, just amazing what she did with Amber Heard on the stand, and definitive. But I felt like they were weak in various ways, and I said so at the time, and I gave my critique of that. And so that was one thing. And then another thing is that there were times, and I can't remember all of them, but there were times when I did feel like they could have really gone for the jugular on some things with some witnesses in terms of really emphasizing something or bringing something out, and they didn't. And I'll give you one example, and this is where something that Andrea Burkhart said is very instructive. Do you remember when Jennifer Howell did her deposition? And a bunch of us were like, oh, yes, Jennifer Howell. In fact, I was on Legal Bites. And when Jennifer Howell's time came up, I started freaking out. And of course, the other lawyers on Legal Bites, they hadn't been following the case up until then, which is fine. But they didn't know, why I was freaking out. And I was like, yes, this is Jennifer Howell. Because I knew that there were so many damaging things, very damaging things for Amber that she could potentially say, because she had said them before, because they had come up in the UK trial and previous depositions or whatever, and testimony, right? And or been alluded to in others' testimony. So I know you all already know this, but maybe for some of our new viewers who aren't into the Depp Heard thing, here's the things that Jennifer Howell could have testified to. So Jennifer Howell was the former best friend and employer of Amber Heard's sister, Whitney. And so Whitney was this kind of conduit through which all of this Amber Heard gossip about what was going on with Amber and Johnny was coming through. It was being through Whitney. And so Whitney would go to work, and she would tell her boss, her best friend, Jennifer, what was going on. And then even for a time, Whitney had to move in with Jennifer Howell when Amber got too violent toward Whitney. So Whitney would tell Jennifer Howell all the time about how abusive Amber Heard was, not only to others, but to herself, how abusive she was, how violent, how crazy. And then when Amber Heard cut off Johnny Depp's finger in Australia, she got on the phone with Whitney at some point and told her about it. Whitney comes running to Jennifer Howell and says, she's done it now. She's fucking done it now. She cut off his fucking finger. She cut off his fucking finger. And so all of that Jennifer Howell had testified to in the UK trial or in previous depositions. I can't remember the exact details, but this was all stuff that was already in some sense on record. And it was all about how abusive Amber was, how Whitney had to come and live with Jennifer Howell because Amber got so abusive, how crazy Amber was, how abusive she was to Johnny Depp, like all of this super incriminating stuff. And if you'll remember, when Jennifer Howell's deposition actually came on during the Depp versus Heard trial, basically almost like none of that came out. I can't even remember what they asked her, but I don't even remember it being something that was really cutting or of great significance. And she was there, and then she was gone. I mean, she was there almost no time. And I remember, like, after she goes off, her deposition goes off, and I'm just like, what? Well, I talked to Andrea about that. And Andrea said apparently that Johnny's team had made a really big error setting up the tea or whatever, preparing to have the rest of Jennifer Howell's testimony entered into court. And I can't remember the details. I have to go back and look, but that basically Johnny's team should have asked certain rather obvious questions to kind of open up the door, legally speaking, for the rest of this testimony of Jennifer Howell to come in. And Andrea said it was a giant error. I'll have to go back and get it, and I'll put it in the next live stream, or I'll put it in a video, because it was really interesting what she said, but I can't remember. But Andrea said that that Johnny's team had made a huge error, and that had, and really, she said it should have been easy. Like it was a kind of an obvious error they made. She said it was something that should not have been really difficult to have teed up. And she said that because of that, then all of this testimony of Jennifer Howell's then couldn't be entered in or shown or whatever. So again, I'm not trying to say that Andrea was dissing or criticizing Johnny's team in a general sense. And I'm not saying that I'm doing that, because I haven't talked about this until now. I mean, I said it at the time just as I was observing the trial, but it's not something that I'm wanting to hammer home. And again, if you ask me right now, what do I think? I think that overall, it seems like they did a great job and they won, and that Camille was absolutely brilliant in her just a complete dissection of Amber Heard on the stand in a very powerful, helpful way. So I don't know, but it does seem like this narrative that is really kicking up this controversy. It's really kicking up some dust in Johnny Depp, Justice for Johnny Depp world online, and that there are a number of people whom I respect who are promoting this idea that Johnny's team was in some ways perhaps undermining him or not working as hard for him or powerfully as they might in certain respects, and that they might have also undermined Adam Waldman for unfair reasons. I mean, I'm sure that Adam, I don't know him, never talked to him or anything. I'm sure that he's sore that he stuck with Johnny Depp for so long and then got kicked off or frozen out or let go or whatever happened there, right? I'm sure that's incredibly, incredibly difficult. And so I understand that feeling or that perspective. I just don't know to what extent there were improper, inappropriate things going on. I will say that it has been pointed out to me that several of the people who have been making these insinuations or speaking out are people who have been in the past rather close to Johnny Depp. And so it does make me wonder, does Johnny Depp perhaps share some of these concerns? Would these people be speaking out if they felt that Johnny Depp was not okay with it or didn't share these concerns? But I don't know. And I'm not in the know on the dynamics of these different relationships and so forth. And I really have never been an expert on any of the behind the scenes legal dynamics. And so I really was just paying attention to what I was seeing in the trial and then what comes up in the media. I'm just very interested in the media narratives, right? So I don't know, but that's what's going on. It's interesting. I'm going to see what develops from it, follow it more and delve into it more. And then we'll see if there's anything for me to report on or talk to you about in future programs. So someone says, what are the facts in this? Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's if you go and you go on Twitter and you look at what's going on in the Johnny Depp community, you'll see people talking about specific things. I don't really want to get into it here, partly because I'm just not very well versed in it. But like one thing that people seem to be talking about a lot is photographs with Elon in them that they don't understand why they were kept out, not entered into evidence. Also, there is some concern about how documents from Johnny Depp's legal team somehow leaked to the other side and leaked out. And I don't know, again, the dynamics of that, but that seems to be an allegation as well, that there was this leaking of lots of documents that got out, went to the other side or to the media, and that they couldn't have come from anywhere but Brown Rudnick. But again, I don't know. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not doing an official video on it or anything. Like, it's definitely something that people are interested in the Depp community, but I didn't want to really weigh in on it. I more just wanted to kind of introduce this idea and say it's interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on it. So I don't know. Okay, so I got about 10 minutes to go. I was just going to do a shorter one this time. It'll probably, give it a few months, then I'll be back to the 24-hour 24-hour live streams. Now, I do want to actually sometime in the next, couple of weeks, I wanna do a much longer one because I think not 24 hours, but I think that it is fun when I'm sitting here for, say, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours. I think that's a nice time, and people enjoy that, and they can really get into listening to a long one. So I'm gonna have that coming up next for my next, public live stream. But my sister is gonna be visiting soon, and she'll be coming in the door probably in about 10 minutes. And so I guess we're getting close to the end. I wanted to talk about a couple of things really quick. And so one of them is Rammstein. I did an interview with a German guy, my friend Max, and we talked a lot about this, and that'll be coming out very soon. I wanted it to come out this weekend, but the weekend got away from me with this project I was working on that I was helping someone with. But we talked about how crazy it is that the conservatives, the more conservative, not the most right wing, but the more mainstream conservative party in Germany is the one that is inviting Shelby, the main Rammstein accuser, to the Bundestag, and how just insane it is, particularly how her story, she's had to retract a lot of it, and then the other parts have been discredited, and just how ridiculous it is. And so it made me think about Evan Rachel Wood. And when she was invited to our Congress and the California Assembly as well to tell her story, is just so funny. These politicians, they do not miss an opportunity to virtue signal. And so to see it in Germany coming from the mainstream right wing party, like you'd expect it from the left wing, you'd expect it from the Greens, and I hear from Germans. And so to me, it is just one more concerning aspect of all of this, that it seems to be really infiltrating opposing political spheres. In other words, it's bad enough if it's coming just from one side, right? As Me Too has been coming more from this leftist perspective or this extreme left. But now that it seems like it's become so mainstream that you've got Angela Merkel's party inviting this crazy Rammstein accuser to the Bundestag. I mean, paying for her and no doubt buying her nice meals and putting her up at the best accommodations like she's won the Nobel Prize or something. I mean, my gosh. My gosh. Yes, the CDU. The CDU, Angela Merkel's party. I figured some of you knew this. I'm sorry. Last week, it was announced, came out in the news, and I know it was true because Shelby Lynn herself, she was doing a jig. She was dancing on her Instagram. She was just elated. But it was announced that the CDU and the CSU have invited Shelby Lynn to the Bundestag. They're going to fly her over there to Berlin to visit their parliament, and I assume give some kind of a speech. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a speech to like the whole parliament, but like she's going to be like celebrated there, and she's going to go. I'm sure they're going to take her to nice dinners, and she's going to meet all these people, and they're going to be like, "Thank you so much for what you're doing for women. Thank you for what you're doing. So brave, so brave." And we'll have to listen to another round of drivel from her. I already posted her speech that she gave at the Frauen 100 event, the Women 100 event. And I posted it twice. I spliced it with Amber Heard once, and then I reposted it in the video. I mean, it's on my Instagram too. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. She had to stop like 15 times and take these fake breaths. Like she was going through so much trauma. Oh my God, it's bringing up all this trauma. My PTSD is kicking in from when Till came into the room, and I knew he might want to have sex with me, with his 60-year-old Willie. If I wanted to do it then, I wanted to that. Yeah, so that's just crazy. It is crazy. Angela Merkel's party, just crazy. Will be what is it called? Shelby Lynn will be fated there. She'll be shown a good time. She'll be celebrated. She'll be the toast of the town. Okay. So anyway, people ask me, 5 minutes left. People ask me, what do I think about the Trump thing? I got into some trouble on Instagram a little bit a couple of days ago because I posted what I thought was a safe joke. Safe in the sense that I'm just going to be honest with all of you who are still sticking with me. I mean, if you haven't dropped out of the live stream by now, you're hopefully fans. I'm scared to wade into. You say you're scared? Well, and yeah, I'm scared or concerned or intimidated or very reluctant to wade into any kind of overtly political thing like the Trump indictments and that whole circus, whatever's going on there, because I feel like I already take so many unpopular stands with what's in my wheelhouse, the MeToo stuff, and some things that are related to it, and cancel culture and all that, that it's like that's a whole other ball of wax to bite off. Well, it's a bad mixture of metaphors, but you understand. But that's a whole other thing. And I, yes, I have opinions. I definitely have opinions. I could talk for hours about my opinions on all of that. But at the same time, I just don't feel necessarily that that is my calling at this point right now, is to start going off in an overtly political direction. I mean, the Me Too stuff is political and whatever. And it's not like I'm shy about talking about, oh, the left is doing this or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, I just don't think that's what I'm called to do. It may change. I don't know. It may change. And I'm certainly happy to go on someone else's show. It's, it's one thing for me to be on my show and on a political soapbox. I don't feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. But if someone else wants to have me on their show, I'm happy then to be more expansive about my views and stuff. But I just don't feel like this is the channel that people are going to be coming to learn about what's going on with the Trump thing, But but I did get, so all of that is to say that a couple of days ago, when the Trump mugshot came out, and I wasn't going to post anything on Instagram. And this just gives you a tiny sliver of like how much anxiety, again, not to be a victim or whatever, right? Just how much anxiety sometimes there is, like running a YouTube channel or doing social media, and like everything I'm about to post, I have to like ask myself 10 times, like, are you sure you want to post this? Pros, cons, all of that, right? And so, but anyway, so I wasn't going to post anything on the Trump stuff because I'm like, I'm not covering that. That's not my thing, whatever. But then what I see is other people start covering it. And this is where I should not have given in to my impulse to do what other people are doing, like I always say, right? But I saw that other people who don't normally post political stuff, they were posting stuff. And so I was like, And then I saw House and Habit, whom I love, Jessica, if you happen to be watching this, she had a poll, and the poll was, should I cover politics? Or should I start covering politics? And the poll was like 90% to 10 that she should cover the Trump stuff. It was in relation to the Trump stuff, because she was debating online on her page, House and Habit, but the same thing I was debating, like, this is a big thing that's happened. It's a huge thing. It's a big media story. Everybody's passing memes around and whatever. Like, should I just be silent, not say anything? And so I saw her, she was debating that, and then she posted the poll, and it was like 90% to 10 people voting that she should get into it. She should jump into it. And then she said, and when I cover political stuff, my ratings are much higher. She means ratings like when she covers political stuff, she gets way more views. And let me tell you something. My guy, he has an Instagram page, and it's not anything political, and it's not anything I mean, it's not, yeah, it's very political, but it's not anything like that's super public. Like, he doesn't promote it, or he's not like a social media personality or anything like that, right? So it's just him and his friends basically. But he posts a lot of political stuff there, and he will rack up sometimes hundreds of thousands of views on Instagram, whereas I cannot break, even at the height of Depp versus Heard, I could not break 40,000 views for any of my content on Instagram. I see him, he's not even trying. He's just posting all of this balls to the wall political stuff, these memes and all of this. And some of it I'm like, and he's getting hundreds of thousands of views. And I'm just like, well, shit, dude, maybe I need to like jump into this political stuff. And so I'm like, okay, how do I do this? How do I post something that will like be sort of latching on to this political stuff and latching on to what's happened with the Trump stuff and the mugshot, but then not like actually espouse like a real political position? And so this is what I came up with for my Instagram post. I'm going to show it to you. And apparently it didn't really hit the mark with some people, or maybe it hit the mark too much. I don't know. I thought I was being funny. And I think some people got it, but some people were like, ooh, okay, so let me show you just a second. I'm going to find it. This is what I'll leave you with. Oh my gosh. Okay. I thought it was funny. People are too serious. Too serious. I guess I did say fuck you, Biden, in it, though. That might have been the step too far. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Let me show you. Okay, I'll make this bigger here. Just a second. Okay, so yeah, this is what I posted. Make it a little bigger. I said, "Oh, shut up. Oh, shut the fuck up, Biden. You look like grandpa from Texas Chainsaw Massacre." Now, the joke here was that if you actually read the caption of this Daily Mail headline, it says, "Laughing Biden mocks handsome guy Trump." "Quote unquote," he called him a handsome guy. So Biden was like, "He's a handsome guy in his mugshot." Mocks handsome guy Trump for his mugshot as he is booed coming out of Tahoe Pilates class. I just have to say, first of all, that the idea of Joe Biden in a Pilates class, I know this is probably wrong or ageist or I don't even know what to call it, but the idea of being in a Pilates class, imagine that you are in a Pilates class. First of all, I didn't even know men did Pilates, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but whatever. But imagine that you live in Tahoe and you have this like regular Pilates class that you go to, and then one day you show up and Joe Biden is there in like what? Like like sweats or tights or what's he wearing? But Joe Biden is in your Pilates class, trying to get those moves out. But anyway, point is, I thought, okay, this is not political. This isn't me arguing an actual political position or even saying that someone should win or lose or that the indictments are wrong. This is just me pointing out the very obvious fact that Biden looks like Grandpa Sawyer from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I even put a picture there because I'm very into evidence. I'm very fact-based, evidence-based on this program. And I don't like to just make assertions without backing them up with evidence. So I was like, look, I'll even put this picture, this side-by-side picture here as evidence. So you can clearly see that there is a strong resemblance between Biden and Grandpa Sawyer. Like that shouldn't even be controversial. So I don't know, but some people were not amused. Let's just say that. There were people who are definitely not amused. We're not amused. All right, that's it. I gotta go, people. So I appreciate if you enjoyed this. Drop me a little tip. Even little things are great. You see my PayPal below. Oh, let me see if there's any PayPal messages. Anybody who gave me a message, left a message for me. Nah. Okay. Oh, Lisa, thank you. Oh, Lisa, I'm not going to say your last name. Okay. But thank you for that donation. No message. But anyway, if you got something out of this, if you enjoyed it, drop me a tip this time, next time, whatever. I appreciate it. And yeah, I will see y'all later. Bye bye. And thank you to my mods. Bye bye.